My name is Valentina, and the night my father erased me began with a champagne glass and a smile. The chandelier glittered above the table as he raised his drink. To family, he said, pausing just long enough for me to feel excluded. To everyone who matters. The guests laughed politely. My stepmother adjusted her diamond bracelet, my sister Mara smirked, and I realized this toast wasn't celebration, it was humiliation. My grandmother had died 3 weeks earlier, and tonight, her will was being honored. Except apparently I wasn't part of it. I stared at my father, waiting for him to meet my eyes. He didn't. Instead, he turned to Mara, beaming. Your grandmother's legacy now rests with you, my dear. You've earned it. The room filled with applause. My stomach tightened. Legacy? Mara had barely spoken to Grandma in years. I'd been the one at the hospital, the one signing paperwork, the one who held Grandma's hand when she couldn't remember her own name. I whispered, "What are you talking about?" Mara's smile widened. Didn't you hear? Grandma updated her will before she passed. The entire estate, house, accounts, everything is mine now. It felt like the floor moved. That's not possible. Grandma promised. People change their minds, she said, especially when they realize who really cared. My father lifted his glass again. To new beginnings. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Not yet. Because something about Mara's voice felt rehearsed. Too smooth. Too confident. And I knew Grandma. She hated lawyers, she distrusted paperwork, and she never made big decisions without me. After the dinner, when everyone was distracted by dessert and gossip, I slipped upstairs into the study, Grandma's sanctuary. The room smelled like her perfume and old books. On the wall, her portrait watched me, eyes knowing. The desk was tidy except for a single folder marked probate copy. Inside, the updated will. I skimmed the first page. All assets to Mara Russo. My name didn't appear once. The notary stamp looked fresh. But one detail stopped me cold. Grandma's signature was perfect, too perfect. It matched exactly with her old medical forms. The same slant, same pressure. Even the same loop at the end of the E. No one signs identically twice. My pulse raced. I took photos with my phone, one page at a time, before tucking everything back exactly as I'd found it. Then I noticed something else. A small brass key taped under the drawer. Grandma's handwriting was on the label. For truth. I slipped it into my pocket. As I turned to leave, Mara's reflection appeared in the mirror behind me. Snooping already? She asked softly. I froze. Her tone wasn't playful. It was cold, certain, like she'd been waiting for me to find it. I was just looking for what's not yours, she interrupted. You never learn, Val. Grandma saw right through you. I forced a smile. Did she? Then why did she leave this key taped under her desk? Mara's eyes flicked to the drawer. A mistake. A confirmation. Careful, she said. You're out of the family now. Don't make things worse for yourself. She left, heels echoing down the hall. I stood alone, heart pounding, key clenched in my hand. The chandelier light shimmered across the portrait frame, and I whispered to Grandma's image, "Whatever you hid, I'll find it." The key felt heavier than metal, it felt like a promise. That night I didn't sleep. I opened old notebooks, letters, anything that might reveal a clue. Then, buried inside Grandma's Bible, I found a note written in her looping cursive. When they pretend to honor me, find the light that never shone. Truth hides where darkness never reached. I looked up at the hallway, at the old bronze lamp she'd never turned on, the lamp that had been in her room the day she died. The next morning I packed my bag, pocketed the brass key and whispered, "You wanted war, Mara? You just declared it." I returned before sunrise. The bronze hall lamp, plugged in, forever dark, waited like a clue. Find the light that never shone. I twisted the stem. A seam turned. Click. Inside the hollow pole. A metal case and a second brass key. The desk key opened it. A letter in Grandma's looping script. A USB labeled for court. Valentina, I did not change my will. Originals at Carter and Row under my maiden name. If codicil appears, it is false. The drive holds what I could not say. If Mara loves me, she will tell the truth. If she does not, you must. Paper will hold us steady. Footsteps. Mara's voice floated up. Val? Here already. I stepped into the hall. Cookbooks. She smiled too warmly. Noon with the lawyer. We'll make it official. Accept what Mom decided. What you decided, I said. Her eyes flicked toward the lamp, quick, guilty. Careful, Valentina. I left with the letter in the drive. A text pinged as I hit the street. A still from the stair camera, me at the lamp. Caption. Keep touching what isn't yours. At Carter and Row, partner Imani Shore pulled the archive box labeled Eleanor Russo, Originals. Inside. The will and the deed embossed, witnessed 3 years old. No codicil. We scanned everything, logged the USB unopened, and filed for emergency preservation and a TRO. Hearing at 11:30. Imani built a lean binder. Originals, Grandma's letter, my photos of the updated will, threat texts, a date log. Short answers, she said. Judges like sequence. In courtroom D, Mara sat with a pearl and a rented jawline. Judge Harrow took the bench. Originals on file, no amendments. Imani summarized. Threats to my client. Digital evidence sealed. We request preservation, a restraining order, and in-camera review. Mara's counsel tried to dismiss the drive. Harrow asked, Chain. Imani handed the evidence envelope and my affidavit. The judge skimmed Grandma's letter, then looked at me. Did your mother discuss intent? Yes. Equal. And to keep the proof clean. He turned to Mara. She folded her hands. Mother told me privately to handle everything. We finalized the change a week before she died. Imani lifted a copy of the deed. Originals predate death by 3 years. No change. We request impound of any new documents. Reluctant, Mara's lawyer produced a stapled packet. The notary stamp gleamed. The signature looked machine perfect. Harrow compared strokes, then sent both to forensics. Preservation granted. TRO granted. No one alters, lists, removes, or enters estate property without court permission. We will review the drive in chambers. In chambers, the clerk mounted for court. Folders appeared. Marnstrex calls transfers. Harrow opened Marnstrex. Can you match her signature? Make the date look last month. Val will roll over. Then calls. A male voice, smooth and transactional. Codicil is done. Deliver cash tonight. If anyone asks, she signed at home. Metadata ticked across the bottom. We have enough to set a path, Harrow said. File fraud on the court by close of business. Hearing tomorrow at 9. Files may be fabricated, Mara's lawyer offered. So may your codicil, the judge replied. That's why we have forensics. In the corridor, my phone vibrated. A photo. The original deed torn down the middle on Mom's dining table. Block letters beneath. You can't prove what's gone. I forwarded it to Imani, the clerk, and Graves. Theater. We answer with dates. Imani touched my shoulder. Status at 4. They'll scramble. We pushed through the courthouse doors into hard light. The phone rang again. Same unknown number. A man's voice, calm, confident. Midnight. Riverside Lockers. Unit B12. Come alone if you want the deed back. The message replayed in my head as I drove. Midnight. Riverside Lockers. Unit B12. It sounded rehearsed, too precise. I sent the recording to Graves and waited for his reply. It came seconds later. Do not go alone. Meet me near the site. The night air was heavy, and the storage complex sat behind a chain-link fence on the edge of town. I parked a block away, engine off, and watched. At exactly 12, headlights flared inside the lot, paused, and vanished. Someone else was already there. Graves appeared out of the dark in a gray jacket. Stay behind me, he said. We move quiet. We slipped through a gap in the fence. Unit B12 was near the back. Its metal door gleamed faintly under the security light, but the padlock was already hanging open. Inside, the air was stale, dust, cardboard, cold concrete. Graves raised his flashlight. Dozens of boxes lined the wall. One had my family name written in red marker. Russo. We lifted the lid. Inside were legal folders, a small camera, and a manila envelope labeled deed. My pulse quickened. Graves opened it carefully. Empty. No paper, no deed, just a folded note in neat handwriting. Looking for ghosts? He swore softly. They wanted you here. To prove you'd break in. I froze. A faint red light blinked from the corner. A hidden camera recording. Graves killed the beam of his flashlight. We're leaving. Now. We slipped back out, closing the door exactly as we'd found it. As we reached the street, a car engine roared to life behind the fence, too late to see who. Graves pulled me behind a delivery truck as headlights swept across the pavement. The car sped away. Back in his sedan, he drove without speaking until the highway lights steadied. They're setting you up, Valentina. First the photos at the house. Now this. They want a record showing you tampered with evidence. I have nothing to hide, I said. Their betting panic will do their work. We need to go offensive. By dawn we were in his office, a narrow room filled with stacked case files and the smell of burnt coffee. He connected the USB copy to his secure terminal. Let's see what else your grandmother hid. A folder titled Accounts opened. Bank statements scrolled across the screen. Multiple transfers to a name I already knew, Bennett Callow. Each entry came from a single account belonging to Mara, marked consulting fees. The amounts increased every week until the final payment, $50,000, 2 days before Grandma's death. Graves exhaled. He was paid to rewrite the will. That's your smoking gun. Another folder held recordings labeled by date. We played one. It was Mara's voice, smooth, impatient. Make it look clean, Bennett. My sister can't find a parking spot, let alone proof. Then his reply. You'll have it by Friday. I'll delete the backups. Graves stopped the audio. We saved this for court. But we need something physical, the documents he used. He keeps them, I said. People like him always keep proof to protect themselves. We checked the property records. Callow rented 2 other units under different names. One was at the same facility. Graves called the sheriff who had signed the first warrant. We'll request an expanded search, he said. While he arranged it, I scrolled through Grandma's final notes on the drive. There was a document titled Last Letter. I opened it slowly. If you are reading this, I have likely left this world in doubt. Forgive me for making you clean what should have stayed pure. Truth is stubborn, Valentina. It always leaves fingerprints. Follow them. You will find mine on the right hands. The words blurred as I read them again. Grandma had left not just evidence but instructions. A map written in patience. Graves closed his laptop. We'll subpoena Callow's files today. But I want you to stay visible. Attend the status conference. Look composed. The moment you hide, they'll use it against you. I will, I said. But what if they destroy the originals before we find them? He gave a thin smile. That's why I called in a favor. A forensics tech owes me. He'll mirror Callow's cloud drive before noon. They won't even know. I stared out the window as the city brightened, thin light creeping over the roofs. Everything in me wanted to scream, but the anger had become something sharper, focus. I texted Imani. We have proof of payment and audio. Filing motion today. Her reply came a minute later. Perfect. Court moved to 10. Judge expects both sisters present. I closed the message. 10 m. The next round. We reached the courthouse just before 10. The threat fax burned in my bag like a live wire. Graves murmured. Short sentences. No anger. Let the paper do the talking. Imani waited on the steps, crisp and focused. Judge Harrow moved us up. Status, then evidentiary hearing. Inside, Mara sat front row, flawless pearl at her throat, eyes shining with triumph. A new lawyer whispered in her ear. I met her stare and didn't blink. When the clerk called our case, Imani rose. Your Honor, new evidence confirms that Ms. Mara Russo paid suspended attorney Bennett Callow labeled as consulting fees. We also received threats referencing additional recordings. We request expanded preservation, warrants for Callow storage units and cloud data, and a temporary gag order to prevent further interference. The judge scanned the exhibits Graves handed him. Bank transfers, transcripts, the threat fax. His eyes narrowed. Counsel for the respondent? Mara's lawyer stood smoothly. My client denies fraud. The payments were for document retrieval. The petitioner is acting from grief, not reason. Imani didn't flinch. We have chain on all evidence, Your Honor. The notary confirms no codicil. The archive holds originals. We only ask the truth to stay protected until forensics verify every page. Harrow tapped his pen once. Expanded preservation granted. No one enters or alters estate property. Bank freezes remain. Temporary gag order applied. Violations will face contempt. He looked toward Mara. If your consultant is Mr. Callow, inform him privilege does not protect crime. The clerk brought forward a brown parcel labeled for the judge. Harrow opened it himself. Inside a flash drive. The bailiff loaded the audio. Male voice. Signature matches. Tell her it was signed at home. She'll believe it. Female voice. And the deed. Male. Destroyed after scan. Stop worrying, she folds. The timestamp was 4 days before my mother's death. Silence filled the courtroom. Harrow finally said, "We won't judge by voices, but this timeline is persuasive." He signed the warrant for the storage units. Sheriff Carter will execute immediately. Ms. Russo, you may attend as observer. No touching. Outside, air hit like cold glass. Imani turned to me. Stay steady. If those units hold even one forged page, this case is over for them. We drove straight to Riverside lockers. Sheriff Carter met us by the gate, bolt cutters in hand. Units B12 and B14, he said. Both paid under aliases linked to Callow. Inside, the corridor smelled of dust and old ink. Carter broke the first lock. A metal door screeched open. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, some labeled appraisals, press, and one at the back marked in red. Revisions. Graves slit the tape. Inside were draft wills, each with crooked margins and notes in a sharp hand. Keep date. Swap witness name. Use bedside story. Beneath them lay a red folder. He opened it carefully and froze. The original deed. Untorn. Signed. Real. Imani's voice was steady. Document recovered under warrant, 11:28 a.m. Carter bagged it, sealed it, wrote the time on the tape. Footsteps echoed. I turned. Mara stood in the doorway, eyes burning. You have no right, she hissed. Carter raised the warrant. We have every right. She looked at me like a stranger. You think this makes you the hero? No, I said. Just the truth. We moved to the next unit. More boxes, bank fees, transfers. Carter opened the last unit, C9. Inside was only a small case, black and sealed with tape. A yellow note stuck to the top. For the judge. Carter set it on the table. Click. The latch opened. Inside lay a phone, screen dark, taped with a torn receipt. 4 words written in neat ink across the paper. Ask Valentina about midnight. The screen lit for 1 heartbeat before dying. The last notification showed a message from Mara. Tell them what you did, or I will. The phone from the case was evidence and bait in one. Graves sealed it in a plastic bag, marked the time and handed it to the sheriff. Carter's jaw tightened. We'll take it to the lab, he said. But whoever wrote that note wants to shift the spotlight. Imani nodded. Classic deflection. They're preparing a counterstory. Mara stayed in the doorway, pale but smiling. Be careful, Val. Midnight secrets never stay buried. I stepped toward her. If you know something, say it here. She shrugged. Oh, I will. In front of the judge. Carter escorted her outside. When the door slammed, Graves muttered. They're about to accuse you of the same thing they did. Be ready. We followed Carter's SUV back to the courthouse. The city looked different now, the streets sharper, air thinner. Inside, Imani was already typing the new filing. Motion to preserve digital evidence, mobile device of unknown origin. The lab cracked the phone by noon. Its gallery held only 4 videos, all time-stamped around my mother's death. We watched in silence. The first showed Mara sitting at my mother's bedside, whispering, "She'll sign, Bennett. She trusts me." The second showed Callow's hand guiding a pen over paper. The third, my heart stopped, showed me. Not truly me, but a woman filmed from behind, same dark hair, same coat. Her face never visible. The narrator said, Valentina will deliver this to the notary. She's loyal. Imani paused the video. They hired an actress, she said, to fabricate you. The last clip was Callow's face close to the camera. If she keeps pushing, we release everything. Let her prove it wasn't her. Carter exhaled. That's blackmail. Imani turned to me. Do you have a solid alibi for that night? Yes. I was at the hospital, the nurses can confirm. Mom was still alive when they filmed this. She smiled calm and sharp. Perfect. We'll bury them with timestamps. Graves leaned over the table. Kalos' arrogance is our map. He records everything. There'll be a master drive, probably in the cloud. Once we subpoena the metadata, the truth writes itself. But as we packed to leave, Carter's radio crackled. Sheriff's office, report of fire, Riverside lockers. Imani froze. What units? Static, then a reply. B14. Total loss. My breath caught. That's where the drafts were. We drove fast. Smoke curled above the storage park like a bruise against the sky. Fire crews sprayed foam across melted doors. Carter showed his badge and pulled the supervisor aside. Any sign of tampering? Accelerant. Deliberate. The red unit was unrecognizable. Ash, heat-twisted metal, fragments of burned paper. But one thing had survived near the entrance. The shredder half melted, with a single page still threaded through the blades. Graves used tongs to lift it into a plastic sleeve. Only one line was legible. Deliver originals to M. Imani's tone was quiet but steady. They torched the evidence. But they also left proof of destruction. That's a crime on top of a crime. As the smoke settled, the fire chief waved us over. We found this outside the gate, he said, holding up a scorched envelope. The writing had barely survived. For Valentina. I opened it with gloved fingers. Inside, a photograph, me as a child sitting beside Grandma, holding her hand at the piano. On the back, a message in red ink. You took her music. Now I take her silence. My vision blurred for a moment. It wasn't fear. It was fury sharpening into clarity. Imani put a hand on my shoulder. They're unraveling. Desperate people make mistakes. Use that. I looked at the charred remains of the unit. Then we move faster. She nodded. The judge reconvenes at 4. Bring everything, the videos, the burned shredder page, the letter. We'll show him they've escalated. As we left the scene, my phone vibrated with another unknown message. Tell the truth at 4, or we will. Attached was a still frame from one of the fake videos. Graves glanced over my shoulder. They think you'll panic. I won't, I said. They just told us what scares them most, the clock. At 4 o'clock, the courtroom doors opened again. Mara walked in first, calm, composed, and Callow followed behind her, alive, smiling and holding a folder marked confession. When Callow walked in with that folder, every muscle in my body turned to glass. He looked unshaken, as if fire warrants and court orders meant nothing. Mara stayed behind him, eyes bright with victory. Judge Harrow entered minutes later. We are reconvened, he said. Miss Shore, you may proceed. Imani stood. Your Honor, opposing counsel's witness has appeared unannounced, carrying what he calls a confession. We request the record reflect that no immunity or protection has been offered. Callow smiled. No protection needed, Counselor. I'm here to tell the truth. He opened his folder. Inside were printed pages, his handwriting neat, his tone almost theatrical. I falsified Mrs. Russo's signature, he said. But not for the reason you think. Mara didn't pay me to steal. She paid me to protect the estate from Valentina. Mrs. Russo believed her older daughter was unstable. She feared Valentina would mismanage everything. The courtroom stirred. Mara's lawyer stood, feigning shock. This changes everything. Imani cut him off. Sit down. She turned to Callow. You expect us to believe a dying woman hired you to forge her own will? Callow leaned back, confident. Not forge. Correct. Mrs. Russo dictated her wishes to me. The paper trail you found, payments, drafts, was my effort to keep the truth safe. The judge's voice sliced through the air. Then where are the originals? Callow's smile faltered. Destroyed in the fire. I had no control over that. Imani's expression didn't move. Your Honor, the fire began less than an hour after the warrant was executed. This confession is damage control, not truth. Harrow nodded. Continue. Imani approached the bench with a single page. The shredder fragment we'd recovered. This was found in the burned unit. It references deliver originals to M. That is not protection. That is conspiracy. She laid it beside his confession. Handwriting matches. Callow's fingers twitched. For the first time his confidence cracked. The judge folded his hands. Mr. Callow, are you aware you have just admitted to altering a legal document under oath? He tried to pivot. I came forward voluntarily. No, Harrow said, voice cold. You came forward when the evidence was burning. Imani pressed. Your Honor, we request immediate forensic imaging of this confession. Its toner and ink can date it. We also request custody of the phone recovered this morning. It contains blackmail footage linking Mr. Callow and Ms. Mara Russo. The judge agreed. Granted. Both exhibits to the clerk. Mara finally spoke. I didn't know he'd go this far, she whispered. I just wanted to finish what Mother started. Imani didn't miss a beat. Then you'll have no issue signing a sworn statement detailing your communications with him, correct? Mara hesitated. Her lawyer pulled her back down. The silence was heavier than words. Harrow leaned forward. Mr. Callow, you are now a material witness and potential defendant. You will not leave the jurisdiction. Ms. Mara Russo, you remain under injunction. This hearing is adjourned until morning. The gavel hit wood. The sound echoed through me like thunder. Outside, Graves exhaled. They overplayed their hand. Imani's tone was calm, almost satisfied. Yes, but we're not done. That confession was rehearsed. He's covering someone higher. Who? I asked. She looked out the courthouse window. Your father. The word cut through the air like a blade. My father. Imani nodded. His name appears on one of the transfer records. He authorized the first payment to Callow, not Mara. That's why the confession blames you, to protect him. My throat tightened. The betrayal had been wide, but I hadn't seen that it started from the top. Graves folded his arms. Then tomorrow we don't just expose fraud. We expose a dynasty built on it. Imani gave a thin smile. And we let them hang themselves with their own documents. I thought of Grandma's letter, the line that never left me. Paper will hold us steady. She had seen this coming. The greed, the lies, the way family turns into a courtroom battlefield. That night, I went home to the silence of my mother's house. The chandelier still swayed gently from air currents, light catching the dust. I sat beneath it, holding the brass key she'd left for me, and whispered, Tomorrow, Grandma, they hear everything. Then I opened my laptop. Graves had sent a message. The phone just synced to a cloud backup. You need to see this. It was a short clip, recorded secretly from the same phone. My father's voice, low but clear. Make sure Valentina believes it's Mara. She's too careful otherwise. The screen froze on his reflection, standing beside Mara, hand on her shoulder, smiling. The timestamp showed the day before the will was signed. Morning came sharp and cold. The courthouse steps were lined with reporters. By now, whispers had become headlines. Family fortune scandal. Daughter accused, confession emerges. I walked through the cameras without slowing. I wasn't there to defend myself anymore. I was there to end them. Inside, Imani placed the tablet before the judge. Your Honor. New digital evidence from the phone recovered under warrant. The lights dimmed as the video played. My father's voice filled the room. Make sure Valentina believes it's Mara. She'll fight her sister, not me. That buys us time. Then Mara's reply. And the codicil? His answer chilled the air. Destroy it. The estate goes clean to me, then down to her once she breaks. A murmur rippled through the gallery. My father, seated behind Mara, didn't move. Only his jaw clenched. Imani pressed on. This proves the conspiracy was orchestrated not by Ms. Mara Russo alone, but by Mr. Russo himself. Every false signature, every payment, every threat authorized by him. The judge looked over his glasses. Mr. Russo, do you deny this voice is yours? My father stood slowly. His suit perfect, his tone polished. That recording is manipulated. My daughter will say anything for control. Imani tapped the next exhibit. Then please explain the identical phrasing in your own email. Timestamped within the same hour. It reads, if Valentina refuses to sign, we use Callow's version. He froze. Just for a heartbeat, but enough. Mara turned to him. You said it was for me. You said Mother wanted. Sit down, he hissed. No, she said, rising. You lied to me, to all of us. The judge pounded his gavel. Order. Imani didn't wait. Your Honor, the estate documents in question now show direct intent to defraud. We request an immediate suspension of Mr. Russo's authority and temporary guardianship of the assets transferred to the legitimate heir, Valentina Russo. The room erupted. My father shouted. She was always the unstable one. She forged the signatures to trap me. Imani handed over one last piece, a signed insurance declaration, months old, bearing his unmistakable signature. He filed this under his own name, listing the estate value at half its worth, proof he planned liquidation. The judge read silently, then looked at me. Do you wish to respond? Yes, Your Honor. I stood. My voice was calm, the kind of calm that comes after surviving fire. My grandmother taught me that love means honesty, even when it costs you everything. My father taught me the opposite. He turned inheritance into a weapon and family into evidence. I only came here to finish what they started, but lawfully. The courtroom stilled. Harrow nodded once. Effective immediately. This court removes Mr. Russo's control over the estate and freezes all related accounts. Further investigation will determine criminal charges. Ms. Valentina Russo, you remain primary executor pending verification. Mara gasped. You can't. But Harrow's voice cut through her words. This is my ruling. My father sank into his chair, face gray. Mara trembled beside him. Callow had already vanished from the bench, slipping out the side door like smoke. As the gavel fell, I felt nothing. Not victory, not relief. Just the strange quiet that comes when justice finally arrives. Slow but absolute. Outside, the reporters swarmed again. Ms. Russo, did you know your father was behind the forgery? I stopped for 1 second. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know it started with him. Graves appeared with his phone. One more thing, he said. The bank just confirmed an offshore account, transferred under your father's name last week. Guess where it leads? Callow, I asked. He nodded. The same number that sent the threats. I smiled faintly. Then they're both still running. Good. Imani caught my look. You want to chase them? No, I said. I want them to know I could. The courthouse clock struck noon. Mara was led away for questioning. My father stared straight ahead as officers whispered near him. For the first time, he looked small. The man who once toasted me as not family now reduced to an exhibit. As I stepped down the courthouse stairs, sunlight hit the marble floor like a spotlight. I whispered under my breath, Grandma, the table's clean. But that night my doorbell rang. On the porch sat a plain box, unmarked, inside, a velvet pouch and a note written in my grandmother's handwriting. One more truth remains. Find the key in what you burned. The velvet pouch was heavier than it looked. Inside lay a warped brass shard, a strand of piano wire, and a note in my grandmother's handwriting. One more truth remains. Find the key in what you burned. I stared at the words. Not blame, a clue. The fire. That night I met Imani and Graves at Riverside Lockers. The air still smelled like smoke. Graves crouched beside the melted shredder. She said, key in what you burned. He tapped the base. Ash falls forward. What hides behind? We tilted the frame. A small compartment slid free. A hollow no bigger than my hand. Inside, a charred metal capsule. I wrapped the piano wire around it and pulled. The cap gave way with a click. A roll of thermal film fell out. Under Graves' flashlight, faded text appeared. Deposit box, name Valen. Key split. Half brass, half wire. Imani smiled. Your grandmother was playing chess while they played checkers. We drove straight to First Harbor Bank. Ruth Delgado met us at the vault door, weary but curious. Every time you walk in, the night gets longer, she sighed. Inside the box marked Valen lay 3 items. A letter stack, a sealed envelope, and a small gold locket, its hinge soldered shut. The first letter was dated 6 months before Grandma's death. Valentina, if you are reading this, greed has already found the table. Your father asked twice for me to sign everything to him. I refused. He sent a man named Callow to my kitchen. He spoke of corrections. I told him to leave. I wrote these words in case my pen was ever stolen. The next pages detailed her intent, the trust, the assets, the reason she chose me. Each line was exact, unemotional, legal. She knew this day would come. Imani whispered. This ends their argument. Her trust predates the forgery. The sealed envelope was labeled for the court. Inside were certified copies of that trust, naming me as successor trustee and sole heir to the property. Graves nodded. Ironclad. Even your father can't twist this. Finally, the locket. I cracked it open with a blade. Inside was a tiny slide. A photograph of my father sitting beside Callow at Grandma's kitchen table. The date marked neatly in her handwriting. Proof she'd seen the meeting. Proof she documented it. Imani's tone was quiet, cutting. That's the moment everything began. We sealed the locket in an evidence bag. Ruth logged the box, stamped it, and said softly, Your grandmother outsmarted them all. When we left the vault, dawn was breaking over the city. Imani handed me a copy of the trust. We'll file it by noon. After that, they can threaten, shout, or burn, but they can't touch a single brick of that house. But the calm didn't last. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Confession was theater. Tomorrow is war. Attached was a meeting invite, family settlement, 9 a.m. The parlor. Imani read over my shoulder. They want to look generous before you crush them. Then I'll let them, I said. At 9 sharp, we walked into the same parlor where my father once toasted me as not family. The room looked staged. Polished china, silver tray, forced smiles. Mara gestured toward the chair I'd been denied months ago. Let's end this before the papers destroy what's left of us. I stayed standing. You already destroyed it. My father spoke, calm as ever. Here's the offer. You get a rental property, a stipend, and silence. We keep the house. The family name stays clean. Imani placed the certified trust on the table. That house is already transferred. Legally, publicly, irrevocably. Mara's face paled. That's impossible. Imani's gaze didn't waver. Your mother's trust predates every will, every fake signature. It names Valentina as sole trustee. My father's mask cracked for the first time. He reached for the papers, but Graves blocked his hand. Don't touch evidence. I pulled out the locket photo and slid it across the table. Grandma caught you both. She left the proof where you'd never look, inside the thing you burned. He froze, staring at his own face in that grainy reflection. You think this saves you? No, I said quietly. It ends you. Imani gathered the documents. The court will receive these at noon. Walk away while you still can. We turned for the door. Behind us, silence. Not one of them called my name. On the porch sat a plain envelope sealed in red wax. Inside was a handwritten note. The last truth sits where music stops. Taped beneath it, a piano key, smooth ivory and cold. The piano key felt cold in my hand, heavier than ivory should be. Grandma's words echoed. The last truth sits where music stops. I knew exactly what she meant. The piano in her study, the one she hadn't touched in years. The last time I heard it play, I was 16, hiding in the doorway while she practiced a waltz. She stopped mid-note that night, looked up and said, One day you'll understand silence better than melody. Now silence was all that remained. I called Imani and Graves. Meet me at the house. Bring gloves and a camera. The study was dim, dust hanging in sunlight like secrets. The grand piano sat under its white cloth, waiting. I lifted the lid. The key from the envelope fit perfectly into a narrow slot above the pedals. A hidden lock I'd never noticed. When I turned it, a click echoed like a heartbeat. A drawer slid open from the side of the bench. Inside were two things, a leather-bound journal and a sealed envelope marked, to be opened when they toast against her. I opened the journal first. Grandma's handwriting was tight, deliberate. They mocked her tonight. They will mock her again. My son believes inheritance defines family. My daughters believe silence protects it. I built this house to keep them from destroying each other, but I failed. The papers you found are proof enough. Still, there is one truth none of them can erase. Beneath her words was a taped photograph. My mother, young, holding me as a baby, standing beside Grandma. Under it, not his child. My breath caught. What? Imani read over my shoulder. She's saying your father isn't your biological father. The next line confirmed it. He married for wealth, not blood. When he learned the truth, he swore to control her fortune to punish me. He could not take her love, so he tried to take mine. Graves whispered. That's why he wanted everything rewritten. To erase you entirely. Inside the sealed envelope was a notarized letter from Grandma's lawyer, dated 15 years ago, the same man we'd met after her death. It stated that my true father had died overseas, and Grandma had adopted me formally to protect me from the Russo name. My hands shook. Every lie, every insult, all because of this secret. Imani placed a steady hand on my arm. This doesn't weaken your case. Cements it. You weren't the usurper. You were the rightful heir she chose. I stared at the piano, the instrument that had been her heart, and her hiding place. She left everything inside the one thing he never touched. He hated music. Graves opened the back of the piano, searching for more. From inside the frame he pulled a small flash drive wrapped in lace. We connected it to his laptop. A single video file appeared. Grandma sat at that same piano, smiling faintly. If you're seeing this, Valentina, they've already tried to erase you. Do not waste years seeking their apology. Justice is the only language they understand. Use mine. She reached under the keyboard, lifted the journal I now held and said, when they toast against you, show them who raised you. And remember, the music stops when the truth plays. The screen went black. I wiped my eyes and exhaled. She planned it all. Imani nodded. And gave you every weapon they tried to steal. The courtroom was quiet the next morning. Imani handed the judge the journal, the adoption papers, and the video. Mara wouldn't meet my eyes. My father sat stiff, hands folded, his confidence gone. When the video played in court, even the reporters went silent. Grandma's words filled the room like music returning after decades. The judge turned to my father. You built your fortune on lies, sir. You conspired to destroy your own family. This is not inheritance, this is cruelty. He removed his glasses. The estate remains solely with Ms. Valentina Russo. And given this deception, the court recommends criminal proceedings. My father's jaw trembled. Mara covered her face. I felt no triumph, only release. The truth had spoken louder than vengeance ever could. As we stepped outside, the courthouse bells rang noon. I looked toward the horizon, the sound blending with memory, the echo of Grandma's piano, the final note she never played. In the distance I saw a shadow standing by the car, Callow holding a briefcase, smiling faintly. He raised it slightly and mouthed the words, "Last move." Callow's smile chilled me more than the verdict had. He waited beside a black sedan, the briefcase clutched like a trophy. Imani and Graves tensed instantly. Imani whispered, "Stay behind me." But I stepped forward. "You've lost, Callow. The court ruled. The documents are sealed." He shook his head slowly. "You think this was about inheritance? No. It was about leverage." He tapped the case. "Your father paid for silence. Now that he's finished, the debt passes to you." Graves stepped closer. "Extortion after conviction is a new low, even for you." Callow smirked. "I don't need threats. You'll want what's in here." He opened the briefcase halfway. Inside, stacks of old film reels, each labeled with years. Mrs. Russo Archive, 1982 to 1995. "Your grandmother recorded everything," he said. "Meetings, visitors, even the night she changed her will. You have the court's version. I have the unedited one." Imani crossed her arms. "You're bluffing. The fire destroyed your archive." "Not all of it," he said. "Half was off-site. And these films contain more than family secrets. Some of her clients. Judges. Names that pay well to stay buried." Graves moved closer, voice low. "You're trying to sell blackmail as inheritance." Callow's eyes gleamed. "I call it insurance. For everyone." I met his stare. "You kept them to trade?" He smiled. "No. To survive. The question is, do you want to see what your grandmother hid from even you?" I hesitated only a second before answering. "I don't deal with thieves." He chuckled. "Then you'll never know who else she betrayed." Before Imani could respond, two officers approached. "Mr. Callow," one said. You're under arrest for obstruction, evidence tampering, and arson conspiracy. Imani showed them the warrant, courtesy of Judge Harrow. He signed it the moment the verdict came down. Callow's face fell for the first time. The briefcase slipped slightly in his hand. "You have no idea what you're burying," he hissed. I met his eyes one last time. "Maybe not. But at least it'll stay buried under law, not lies." The officers cuffed him and placed the briefcase into evidence custody. The last thing I heard him say as the car door closed was, "Music always comes back, Valentina." For a moment I stood in silence. The courthouse bells rang again, the same rhythm as Grandma's metronome. Imani turned toward me. "It's over." But she was wrong. Ending isn't always silence. Sometimes it's echo. We walked back into the courtroom to finalize the estate. The clerk handed me a final envelope. Inside, Grandma's handwriting, fragile but steady. "If they reach for ruin, let them have it. But you, my dear, must build. The house, the music, the name, make them mean something again. Revenge ends when creation begins." I stared at the words until they blurred. Outside, reporters waited, shouting questions. "How does it feel to win? Will you press charges? What's next for the Russo estate?" I paused on the steps. "Justice isn't about winning," I said. "It's about remembering who fought fair." Then I walked away. Weeks later, I moved back into the family house, the one they had tried to erase me from. The first night, I dusted the old piano, replaced the missing ivory key, and turned the brass shard from the vault into a pendant that rested just above my heart. When I pressed the pedal, the sound that came wasn't broken. It was soft, alive, real. Graves dropped by to deliver the final notice. "All assets cleared, case closed. You're officially free," he said. I smiled. "No, just finally home." Imani joined us, holding the court transcript. The judge added a note to the record. "Truth, like music, never dies. It waits to be played again." I ran my fingers along the piano keys. "Then let's play." That night, I recorded one last piece, my grandmother's waltz, and sent it anonymously to every reporter who had written about our case. The video ended with a simple message. "You said I wasn't family, but she made sure I'd carry the name forever." Justice can sound quiet, but silence never means surrender. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is rebuilding what they tried to burn. Because truth, once played, never stops echoing.